So, hi and welcome to this training session on how to get the most out of your P3 use with fixtures like the Mac 1, the Mac Aura XIP and the VDO Sceptron. But it of course also works for all the other fixtures we have in our range. But what do you need to make something like that? Well, you need some fixtures who speak P3, of course, a P3 system controller or a PC running P3 PC like we do here. Some kind of media server or media player or signage player to play the video content. A lighting console, of course, something of your own choice that works best for you. And ideally a dark room full of haze. So in here I got a dark room, but it's not full of haze due to fire regulations. But yeah, I think you guys will get the point anyways. So I will dive over to the control station and get behind the P3. So I will see you in a few seconds. As you see in here, this is P3 running the actual show file right now, but there's no fun in just having everything working. So let's just create a new show file. So go into File, Create New. And then we call this one Training 1. So the purpose for me now is just to show you how quickly you can set up something like this. We'll just use real world mode. If you want more explanation on the different modes, I suggest you follow the upcoming webinars. For more training, we'll do 521mm pixel pitch. Again, follow the trainings for more info on why. And then just click through on HD. So we'll finish it, then we've got a blank canvas. Now, of course, under here in Discover Devices, I see all my fixtures that are showing up. Here, I see my power port and then the Sceptrons down here. So now I have a few different options on how to map out these fixtures on the canvas. I can just take a fixture and pull it in on the canvas, but let's show you a bit more fun way of doing things. So I'll click on the import and export, import a background image, because since the rig is set up, I can take a photo of the rig, which I've stored here in photos. I got it down here. This could also be a JPEG from a drawing or anything like that. So then you need one product in the photo or something somewhere that you know the measurement of. I've got Sceptrons in my rig and I know the Sceptrons are 1 meter long. So I set my size in real world to 1000 millimeters. Hold Control, click in one end of the Sceptron, drag towards the end of the Sceptron and release the mouse. And then that scales my image. I'll be happy with 50% opacity and then I will click OK. And then all of a sudden my fixtures are in here. So now I can, if I actually see the rig, then I could just turn on a fixture with highlight and then pull it in on the canvas. But I can also pre-build the rig by using the library fixtures, which is what we will start with. So I will take my Mac 1s first. I want them to be numbered starting from 101 as an old homage to the Mac 101s. So click on Mac 1, click out your Mac 1s where there are Mac 1s on the canvas. Like that, hit Escape to deselect. Next fixture in line is Aura XIPs. I want those ones to be called 201, so we call those 201. Click on the fixtures in the photo. And then those ones are in. And then next step is VDO Sceptron. So we'll call Sceptrons 301, just to keep the numbering tidy. And then click out those approximately where they are on the canvas. And as you see, the size and scale of the photos is represented quite well with this. So now I need to do a little technical maneuver here on the laptop that I'm running here. So I need to go into my background keys. And I need to select one more video stream of the fixtures. And I would also need my P3 to be in there. So I'll now change the view so you can actually see the fixtures that's in here. They are conveniently a little bit tilted down right now because that's how I left them from the lighting console. but that's just by coincidence. Normally they would be standing face up. So as you see, there's no light in them, but if I'm doing a test pattern called light all, I will just run light all to them, and that of course takes them back to their normal position. So here I can just do a system check to check that everything works. So I've got these fixtures in here, and they, as I did the numbers as they were numbered, they're all connected. So I can just check through the list and make sure they are in the correct order, which they are right now. So by doing this, by using the numbers they had, they are straight away connected, but most likely you will come to a show and they will have old numbers, so they will not be in the correct order. So good practice is to always start your shows with doing a renumber. So use the renumber tool, bump all fixtures offline. That will then number all the fixtures in sequential order in the way they are patched or cabled. So I will press yes to disconnect all my fixtures, and now they are here in discovered devices again, and nothing is connected in here. So then, for the sake of showing how quick you will go around on a rig, you will use your quick addressing tool. Click on quick addressing tool, first fixture in the chain lights up, and then you click that fixture, and then next fixture in the chain lights up. I will show you a little trick, so I will abort the quick addressing right now, because I can always turn on a test pattern that's found over here. Then I can turn on red test pattern, hit it with DMX override. That means any fixture that's actually patched or part of something will show red, because otherwise you might get confused with which ones have I clicked and which one haven't I clicked. So now go back to quick addressing tool, and then it's asking some devices are already addressed and running. Would you like to unaddress? No, not really, because they work. So I will just continue, and then the next fixture in chain, which is another Sceptron, turns up white. As I click it, it turns red and is connected. Then I get down to Aura XIPs, which is next fixture in line. So click through on these ones. Of course, make sure you can visually see the fixtures. You can do Wi-Fi to your P3 PC and then walk around the rig or walk around in the room and do your quick addressing as well. I wouldn't suggest running video for over Wi-Fi, but just doing quick addressing, that's a really good way of doing it. So now I've got all my fixtures in here. I can do a test pattern called device number to show the first pixel of each of them. So if I zoom in a bit on my Sceptrons, I see they are all angled the wrong way around. So if I take down my configure devices, select my Sceptrons, and then hit shortcut RR to rotate all of them 180 degrees around, that's going to help me a lot once we get to actual video content. So now we're halfway there. Next step is of course to patch the fixtures. So then we can patch the fixtures by selecting the fixtures, add controls, make ones in basic mode on SACN 1.1, continue like that. Next fixtures in chain, which is the Aura XIPs, you also see them come alive because I've already patched them on the console. If I select my Aura XIP, continue because the address is already chosen, and then I will do my Sceptrons, which I will do in hybrid mode because I want the P3 switch channel to be able to change between video and DMX, an intensity channel, and then I want 10 segments per fixture. So I get about 10 centimeters of pixels active for each. And then I started those ones on universe 2, address 1. So then it jumps in there. So then all of a sudden, all my fixtures are patched in here. I can click out my device number setting, and then the fixtures are now operational on DMX. If you want an even quicker way to set your show file up, then I suggest you use something called MVR, which is an import from a drawing program. So I will now show a bit of a teaser video from the upcoming training sessions to show you a little bit more about MVR and how that works. So stay tuned for a video coming up. Let's dive into MVR import and export within P3. But first a little background on what MVR actually is. It stands for My Virtual Rig and is something that you can use if you use a drawing program called Capture or Vectorworks or Visivig, where you draw up your rigs in 3D, add information like patch info to the fixtures, and then link the fixtures with GDTF fixtures. And as you know, we can use GDTF fixtures within P3 as well for importing where fixture positions and patch data for the fixtures. So within a drawing program, you hit your export MVR. Then within a lighting console program like MA3, you can import your patch information as well, and then get your 3D data for free and then start programming. Inside P3, I first need to set up a new show file. I'm starting this one in here in a real world map within a 10mm show file, which is because I know that will fit the file that I'm using. Then I click on finish, then I go up to my left corner, hit my import export button, hit import MVR, select the correctly exported file from the drawing program, which is this one here, double click on that one or hit open. Then I need to check that the MVR fixture types are correct and that all fixtures are in the correct modes. If I want to change something, I can change it in here. And don't forget to tag the little import checkbox on the right hand side. Since I'm using Martin-made GDTF files for the linking from the drawing programs, they all match up fine. Next window takes care of what to import. If I want to import positions and patch data and protocols. If I'm happy with that, I go for next step. I select my projection mode, which is front in this case, because P3 is a 2D program. So I will keep my original offset, and then the fixtures get imported as I click the import button. Then the whole map is correct. I can move it down to center for it to make more sense for the actual things I'm projecting onto them. All the fixtures have their correct data. All the positions and rotations are correct towards the drawing file. All the modes are correct in here. So it's a very simple thing to get it working. And then, of course, the patch info also matches up. So everything is done. All I need to do now is go in to the actual rig and then start my quick addressing, and then I will be done with my whole show file setup. For exporting an MVR file out from P3, I need to start from a finished setup or make a new one. Make sure the setup also has a patch if I want to export that. Hit my import export button, click export MVR. Make sure that all my files are linked with a proper GDTF file, that I export the correct files in the correct modes and hit the export checkbox. Then I click the export button. Select what projection mode to export in, because P3 is still 2D. Then give the file a name, save it, and then the export is done. And then to choose which software to bring the new file into. Who knows what it will be? This time it was MA3. So I start from a blank show file in MA3 or a pre-made show file if I'm importing into something that's already there. Go into Tools, go into Patch, and then make sure it's an empty patch or a patch you've done. Click your Import MVR button, select your show file, hit Import, and then wait for the MA3 to finish. There are many more better tutorial videos on how to make MVR import for any program that you're using, so this is just something to show one way of doing it. So you can do the same thing within Vectorworks, Capture, Visivig, Depends, or any of the visualizers that are using MVR files, or MA3 and Chamsys, which I believe are still the only consoles that support MVR import. But it's a very nifty and clever way of getting your show files in with minimum handling between the files.
Next step is of course to select which objects to import. If it's just a blank show file, I will just select all of them and then hit import MVR. Then the patch is done, and then you can check that all the fixtures have arrived properly. As you see, it's the factory made GDTF files with the images of the fixtures, and the patch matches up and the modes are all there. So it's a clean MVR import into MA3. Hit save and exit, and then check in your fixture sheet and you see that the fixtures are all in there as well. So now you're ready to start making groups and programming. To find the GDTF files, you can check both in Martin Companion, where you of course also can find the firmware, but then in the GDTF viewer you can check your files, check for the right modes, and then hit download the GDTF file. For a performance fixture or profile fixture with gobos, you can also check the gobos and then hit download the GDTF file, and then get the latest and greatest files to use in your programming. The other source of GDTF files is of course the GDTF share on gdtfshare.com. Click in on find fixture. In here you will find the whole library of manufacturers who are all supporting GDTF files. There's also a lot of user-made files for those who have manufacturers who do not support the standard. And then find Martin Professional, and then you find the long list of fixtures that we have available as GDTF files. If anything's missing, please give us a shout and we'll try to make that happen for you as well. So if you click in on a fixture like the Ultra Performance, you will find the different revisions if there are any. You will also see it's tagged with uploaded by manufacturer. You will see all the modes and the different settings in here. On the right hand side you can also see the manufacturer specific GDTF page, which contains all the fixtures in a more nice way of showing the fixtures with the little images, thumbnail images of the fixtures in here. So you can make sure that you're selecting the correct file to use when going out programming. So that was all about the MVR import and export within P3.
So yeah, then we're getting back to our systems again. So I will change back to my view of the rig and my P3 fixtures. And as you see, they've turned on a bit of color, and that's controlled by the lighting console. I've got this little button with a question mark up here, which shows received protocols. So I can here check what protocols I'm receiving. I can see that Universe 1 and 2 is being received actively from the MA controller that I've got on the side here. I can, within the patch, not just see the patch, but I can also see my live values filtered per universe and filtered per fixture. So I can here see the actual values coming in on my fixtures. So as you see, as I move the dimmers on the Aura XIPs and Mac 1s, then they're actually changing values in here. So this is like a very useful window as well. It might be that you want all the fixtures to be centered, so background image only pops up in the top corner, but then you can take your whole rig like this, just mark all of them and put them somewhere a bit more centered in the mix. And then of course you might want to use the align tool to align these ones horizontally by hitting the shortcut A, of course. So then they are in here in a nice and good way. Then you have a few more advanced features to look at. So if you got your Mac 1s in here, then you can select the configure devices. You can do right click and toggle fixture device selection, or hit the shortcut Ctrl T. That will toggle the view down here where it says fixture properties right now into device properties. So if I go into that, I will now see all my fixtures on a kind of control channel level, if you want to talk DMX language. So in here I can see that all my fixtures are set to color mode extended, so I can change that to calibrated if wanted. I can even change DMX modes and patch. I can change my DMX overrides, pan tilt speeds, effect shortcuts, dimmer curves, all of that from in here without having to go disturb the LD by the console, or if something isn't set the same way, one of the fields will be blank in here. One more useful feature is the firmware and fixture library, in case you want to change firmware on the fixtures. So doing that, you will go into settings and then choose device and firmware library. Click on that one, then you get a nice list of what's the current device firmware for all the fixtures. So in case you want to upgrade or downgrade your fixtures, maybe your Mac 1s are all running version 1.0.0, then if I change it here to 1.0.0, you get a little prompt down on the side saying device with incorrect firmware detected, because that's not the firmware I'm asking to use. If I'm sent a new version of firmware, I will add that in the user library by finding the file here or on my processor on a USB stick. Take that file, pull it into the library, and then that file will show up here in the current device firmware library. So then I can change it back to 1.10 and then I'm good to go with that. But that's a lot of talk about P3 and stuff now. So let's dive into getting video in. So that's where I need to go into my view with video input. I've got a media server that outputs NDI here on the side. So I'll choose the source NDI and then choose between my sources, because of course it shows up as a source. So anything that's broadcasted over NDI will be sent onto the network and will be shown as different NDI sources. So here I'm showing the composition from a Resolume computer on the side. So of course I'm just seeing all the video in here. I've got view modes up here, so I can go for view modes and show display whole frame with fixtures overlaid. Even if I show it offline, it will show what happens on the actual fixtures. So if I zoom in, I will see what the pixels on the fixtures are actually doing with the input that I'm getting. I can also do display fixtures only. Then that will just show what's happening on the fixtures right now. And I can do on background image with offline, which then of course doesn't really make any sense because my background image is up here. But if I've got the fixtures on top of it, yeah, it will show on the background image in here. So I will go back to my favorite, display whole frame with fixtures overlaid. But then since I'm over here on a quite small session, I probably want to scale down my video. So I do that over here in video scaling. So I go to maybe 800 pixels wide, and then I probably want to stay locked to 16:9 to not make it too bad. Should have changed that setting first. So we'll go to 800 by 450, and then you can just pull the video input to cover your fixtures and center it the way you want. So that's using the video offset. So now if this is a good setting for me, I will store this as a preset by record, right click record, and set it to be NDI training, and then choose to store my video input configuration and my setup fixtures, which is where my fixtures are located. And then I will click on that one. This now means, of course, if I change source over to something like HDMI and clear out all the scaling settings and video offset settings, that's all gone, my old settings. So then I need to click my preset to get back into my NDI. And then it's always the heartbreaking moment when you're waiting for the fixtures to actually receive the signal. But as you see in my camera view, the fixtures are not really seeing the video that I'm seeing in here. So how come? Well, I kind of need to go over to the lighting console part then to change that, because now I would say my work in P3 is pretty much done. So I will change to a bit of black and white content to get us started. So I will just have lines going up and down like this. And then we will go over to my console view, just like that. And there you see all of a sudden a familiar sight for some of you, but not for some of you who don't use this brand of consoles. So in here, you're now seeing if I clear out in here, then the fixtures are all white. That's because I made a cue that shows like that. So I can now choose to take my Mac 1s and my Aura XIPs and turn down the output for the main beams, so we're just showing the backlight. And then I can take my Sceptrons over here. They're all nice and on, so I can trigger stuff with my intensity. The Sceptrons on Gobo have got a channel called Play Mode. So at 0, which is DMX mode 0, they are just not showing any video, they're just showing DMX. So I've got in the top corner here, I've got a preset for DMX and a preset for video, which then toggles on the video in here. This means, of course, I can now do anything I want to the video. So if I've got my Sceptron pixels selected, I can then do blue on the black and white video. I can even do effects on my fixtures. So it's a perfectly simple way to just do any manipulation on the black and white content. So if I'm then jumping back to just play video on those, and then I want my Mac 1s and my Aura XIPs to also show video, then I've got a few different ways of doing that for those, because those ones have got a P3 mix channel. So those ones can play video full, like you see in here. And you see the content is running on those fixtures as well. You can set it to high, which is showing the video with all colors. So if I set it to full and then change to blue, you will see all the fixtures are doing blue. If I now take my Mac 1s backlight, change that to red, then you will see all the Mac 1s are doing red video, whereas the other fixtures are doing blue. So it's a nice way of doing things to your actual fixtures that's happening in here. So if I turn magenta instead, that also works. And if I take my auras glow and turn them to red or to green, that works all fine. So that's the easy way of changing color to video content. But if you're playing colored content, you might not want to change the color of the content. Then you might want it to keep that color. So if you want to do that, then you need to trigger your fixtures. So take all your Mac 1s in here, set it to the other preset, which is video high, which is then the top of the range just before the mix mode. So that means you see now that all my fixtures are doing black and white video, except for the Sceptrons, because they are still in blue, because the Sceptrons have a legacy mode, which needs a P3 switch channel. So it needs to be set to white in order to output the video. So right now I can easily toggle my content to be something that's colored. So I'll turn off the black and white things. I will do something orange, or I can do content that's blue, or I can do content that's green, or anything like that. So here you see we're just using content of any color. That's just because the mix mode is set to high. And then I programmed a few bump buttons on the console in order to take the DMX mode channel down to 0, and then of course be white as well. So I can use that for hits on top of the video, which are useful functions, or a bunch of random strobe buttons for all the fixtures, which of course then means that my fixtures will receive everything in a good way. So this is the happy play day when you're going between video and DMX. And as you see, it's quite simple to actually do some fun stuff with just a couple of bump buttons to hit between white and video, because it reacts instantly, so it's easy to follow the music. And this is pretty much a way of controlling the fixtures over DMX and P3, but just to get you guys interested in seeing that it doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that much time to get into things, to just get the products running. It should be as easy as just, as soon as you've set up the console, just turn on the P3 controller, hook up the fixtures, and then enable yourself to get video input as well, because that's a lot more fun than just doing DMX effects, because then you can go between these kind of video effects and your standard DMX effects. Because if I turn off these effects, I'm still just running black and white content or DMX content. So I can of course just do my normal DMX effects on all the fixtures. But as you see now, after seeing the other way of doing it, yeah, this is kind of not as fun as the video part. And bear in mind, I'm just using basic mode on all my fixtures, which then of course means that with P3 you get pixelation even on the Mac 1s and Aura XIPs, or even the mighty Aura PXL with a full universe of pixels. So yeah, it's a good way of saving parameters or channels on your DMX console.